Hi, Vini ma'am. Welcome to the second episode of IMC Women Who Soar edition. Do you mind briefly introducing yourself for the benefit of the crowd that is watching?
Thank you. First of all, delighted to be here talking to you today and to the rest of the fraternity as we go forward. So I'm Vini Mahajan. I am 22nd batch IIM Calcutta, which means I am from the 1985 to 87 batch. I joined IIM Calcutta after economic honors from LSR Delhi University. And I went on to immediately join the IAS. So I am also 1987 batch Indian Administrative Service in the Punjab cadre. Will that do for now?
Of course, that's amazing. Would you mind telling us about your journey? So how you reached like to IIM Calcutta and also your journey after that? What were the challenges you faced during your time and just how you made it to the position where you're in today?
So remember, in our times, there were only basically 3 IIMs, right? IIM Lucknow had just about started, but the IIMs, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, and Bangalore, in that order, were the ones that most of us aspired to. Like I said, I did my economics honors. I was kind of fixated on the civil services. But then the civil services are a highly uncertain exam. And so it seemed like a good idea to have an alternate career option. And honestly, that's the reason why I went through the CAT and through the IIM selection process. I do believe that for other aspirants for the MBA, I have actually been strongly advising that those who are considering an MBA must actually go only after significant work experience. So that was one of the things I myself found wanting in myself, going straight from college into an MBA. Means you don't really understand issues around organizations and, having worked, I believe, would be a better, would give a better understanding into some of the concepts, etc. So that is something all those who are considering joining an MBA should definitely keep in mind. And of course, even in our time, most people who came in did have some work experience, but the IIMs are kinder and do take in, or at least used to take in more without work ex. It's now, I'm aware, increasingly work ex is being given a higher premium, and that's a good thing. I breezed through campus life because I was actually preparing at that time for the civil services. However, I think I'm very I believe it was very, very lucky that I got the opportunity to go to IIM Calcutta at that stage. It's a wonderful learning opportunity, even if I didn't personally get the max out of it, because like I said, I was preparing at that time for the civil services. But even in spite of all of that, and the second year, of course, was a time that I did get to spend less time on studies, but just having a wonderful peer group, bright, active, energetic, supportive group of students who've actually become lifelong friends is a huge, huge gain. And I think, therefore, all of us who make it into the IIMs have to regard ourselves as particularly fortunate. Remember, these relationships are some of the most precious outcomes of an MBA degree, and keep them very close to yourself. Nurture them as you go along. Of course, social media, etc., has made it much easier to stay connected now than it was when we graduated. Nevertheless, physical contact also remains important. So stay in touch on that. The journey in the IIS has been a wonderful one for me personally. In the Punjab cadre, I have had the most amazing opportunities. Opportunities to go and at times where no woman had gone before. That was nice, but it was also nice to be able to do things at critical times, whether it was during my posting in the Prime Minister's office, looking at the economic sector at the time of the global financial meltdown, or later as Chief Secretary during the COVID pandemic, and so many others. So, but generally, I believe that for each of us, life holds great promise. And I think I would urge each one of us to embrace the opportunities that we get. At the same time, remember to always allow yourself the luxury of doing what excites you. So it's so important. Every day you're going to work. Every day you're spending the largest part of your day at work, and that time must be a fundamentally happy time for you. I cannot imagine spending, 10 hours or more day after day at work and not feeling happy to be going to work.
Right.
One might feel leaving for home too, but you should definitely feel happy going to work. So whatever you're doing, and it need not be corporate life or even for that matter, public, it could be as a civil society person, whatever one chooses. There are artists out there. There are other creative people. Whatever we do we should be doing whatever makes us happy to go start doing it every day.
Right. Ma'am, I have two follow-ups from what you just said. So the first one is about the work experience bit that you said. So we still have about 40% freshers in each batch. And I actually receive a lot of messages on LinkedIn asking why work experience is. So I personally have 2 years of work experience before I've come here. So I receive a lot of messages on LinkedIn, asking why work experience is important, because people actually think that after MBA, you're standing at the same place. So essentially wasting a couple of years of your life if you have work experience and then come here. So if you could elaborate a little on that, why you think work experience is that important? And the second thing, a lot of people in my batch as well as the junior batches have come in after trying a lot, after giving a couple of years to trying for UPSC, but have failed or were not able to make it. And a lot of people still have plans to try that after MBA. And since it's not that common a career path, we really don't have much guidance on that. So if you could shed some light on that, on how people who've tried can excel at MBA, even if they didn't excel there. And also for the ones who aim to do this, how they can, sort of do it better.
So on WorkX, I think fundamentally, culturally, we are so tuned to this kind of linear path where there is there's a period as a student, then you become a family person, and then you go on to whatever retirement and so on. And it's kind of seen as natural that you finish your education and then you go into the work world. And I think that's something we need to question. Like I said, I strongly believe that after college, regardless of what you do in college, you should have at least 2 years of work ex under your belt. And I think that gives you an understanding of how people relate in workspaces, how work is organized, how an organization deals with its own issues and with other organizations. and a first-hand experience of working wherever it may be. It doesn't have to be, like I said, even this work X need not be in a corporate or a consultancy, or it could be any organization, small or large. But I think you need to have gone out of the your student pattern of living and behaving into a work space, and then come back, because an MBA is very much designed, I believe, to address issues of organization behavior, of efficiency in workspaces, of improving productivity, quality, emphasis on quality, and all of those things. I believe you understand better when you see them in the real world as against reading or studying about them in school texts.
Right.
So and there's this whole thing about wasting 2 years of life. I think that's also something we need to get out of. Retirement ages are very flexible across different job opportunities. It's not as though there's a hard stop everywhere at age 58 or age 60 or age 65, whatever. Even if there is, remember, with longevity being as what it is, even now there are so many people who are mentally and physically active into their 90s. And so whatever, and the next generation, you all should definitely expect, barring an unforeseen, so anyone can die at any point in time, but a reasonable expectation of living a productive, active, useful life into your 90s is something you should expect, you and others of your generation. I see my father at 91, physically, mentally active. He reads the newspapers more thoroughly than I do, and sometimes he will tell me things that he believes I should know and which I have missed. So this is the backdrop in which I'm coming from. Wasting 2 years of life, there's no such thing. What is wasting? Getting an exposure, getting an understanding is growth. And if it's something that's interesting, exciting, that's just wonderful. Even if you retire from your job at age 60, 65, whatever, you will still need to think of what to do with your life for the next 30 years. So being at the same stage at losing 2 years to work X, no, it doesn't work that way. And more importantly, if you've grown better, it will show up somewhere or the other. So even if you are, government is the most sort of conveyor belt kind of system that you can think of. It's hard to jump off and jump on at a next point. However, even there is an recognition for competence, talent, etc., and that shows up in your postings and in the way you're treated and so many things. So that's the long answer to your first question on why I believe it's very, very important for all MBA aspirants to have WorkX under their belt before they join. On your question on the civil services, I believe the civil services are an amazing opportunity to do good, to contribute to the community, to your economy in the country, and it's well worth a shot. However, it is also a game of dice. The numbers appearing for the exam are so large that really we haven't been able to figure out a good way of separating the ones who should make it and those who perhaps should not. Who are the ones who should make it? The system doesn't necessarily need the highest IQ going. Right. It does, and it should welcome people who want to be in public service, who want to contribute in that fashion, who are willing to be in the smaller towns and cities, or go to villages, deal with rural and urban grassroots issues, and perhaps at a lower remuneration than the top-notch corporate jobs offer, and who therefore feel this is a calling. So those are the kind of people it should be getting into the system. Doesn't always work like that. So honestly, for those youngsters who try and don't make it, I am now constantly surprised at the bright young people who don't clear the preliminary examination. I mean, that used to be taken as a given in our times, that you would clear the prelims and you only had to prepare for the main papers and the interviews. Now it's become much more of a very uncertain exam. So while those who are clear that they want to do this, I myself was one, there were others. So my batch in IIM Calcutta has 3 people out of, not my batch in IIM Calcutta, but IIM Calcutta has given 3 Indian Forest Service officers to the 87 batch of 15 Indian Foreign Service, IFS Foreign Service officers, and so on. There are in the IS as well. But the fact is that there are many other opportunities now for public service, for working on issues relating to communities and engaging with the government and with communities in a meaningful way. So it's not the be all and end all. It'll be wonderful if bright young people were to try and make it to the civil services. It's always lovely to see that happen. But if you don't make it, it's not necessarily because of any gap in your efforts, etc. It's quite likely to be just a stroke of luck. It's a very low probability kind of a game. But again, there are so many ways of doing public service in some sense. Even corporate life offers huge opportunities in terms of what is called the environmental social governance kind of agenda, of being conscious of larger issues and of contributing to their to addressing those challenges. I think you can expect going forward there will be much more open access to government jobs. There are already limited opportunities. I would imagine they would increase over time, but then you could also do your own civil society organization. You could do some kind of your own setup. Even if you do your startup and you do well and you work in a space which is meaningful, that's also public service in a sense. So there are, I think, a lot of opportunities now. I mean, my own children, after graduating from Harvard Business School, son and daughter have actually opted to do a kind of public service by working on early childhood education, not from within the government, but working with the government. So I believe there are huge opportunities there.
Thank you for that. So my next question is, what were some of the challenges that you faced at IMC and in your work life as a woman, and how did you overcome those?
I must admit that I'm a privileged woman. I am one of 2 daughters of my parents. So to begin with, the fact that they opted to live their lives with 2 daughters itself, now I realize, is a sign of, being gender sensitive that I did not realize when I was a child, but I realize now. And so one grew up in a very gender neutral kind of setup where it was seen as obvious that there would be pursuit of higher education without the pressures that I think women do sort of end up facing around settling down and so on. I think there's much less of that. IIM Calcutta itself, again, I believe was a gender sensitive organization. We didn't really face too many challenges in that sense. The only one that I really faced was the propensity of a lot of the people to indulge in alcohol, which coming from a family background and a girls' college where I had friends who did not drink, came as a shocker to me. And I found it very hard to be around at drunk parties. I was a little prudish in that sense, maybe a little sort of less so now. But but the challenges otherwise were not significant, other than I was prepping for the civil services. So at IIM Calcutta in those days, there weren't too many people openly prepping. I remember going to a finance professor to ask for books to read for the exam, and got a long lecture instead on why I should not be even considering joining the government, which is, according to him, absolutely sort of trying to block all good things happening in this country. So I still remember Professor Rao telling me in his slow and calm manner, do you know what a block development officer is? He's an officer who blocks development. So it was pretty much on those lines that I was frequently asked at the dining table, etc. In the IS itself, again, maybe I did not pick up too many signals and hints. I used to believe that I did not face any gender discrimination, and I still believe that perhaps I didn't, because I did get all the opportunities that I believe I would have got if I were a male. The challenge, of course, remains a little bit because socially sometimes you get a little excluded. Men tend to engage more with men, are not always comfortable around women, especially while socializing. So the bonding, the networks, and so on, you tend to have a little sense of exclusion, and there aren't enough women in the workspace. And if you don't like all of them, then you have serious trouble on your hands. But as the numbers go up and there are enough choices to make friends, and as the numbers go up, men also, I think, get a little more comfortable with having women around them. But even now, one finds that in mixed WhatsApp groups, there will be a certain discipline which perhaps the all boys groups don't have, and they are able to let their hair down a little bit more. Women in general, however, one does recognize do face issues. I mean, particularly child rearing is a challenge. I was fortunate enough to have very strong support from my parents, also support staff. But otherwise, it is hard to be focusing on a baby and on your work. Having said that, I still encouraged my daughter and my daughter-in-law to have babies, and I hope they will. But I recognize that society in general and all the groups that we are part of need to do a bit more. It does take a village to raise a child in some sense. It should not be left to the young mother or even the young parents for that matter. There should be more support. Sometimes, I noticed in my office just now that I had not checked whether we had a creche. There is a requirement that all employees, all employers who have more than a certain number of employees should have creches. And I think perhaps we are not sufficiently sensitive to those needs even now. So we should look at the issues that working women face, especially when they choose to become mothers.
Okay.
this is a very important time for the new generation as well. It's not just for the mother, it's for the baby. So that is something that I think as a society and as a community of highly qualified men and women, we need to give a little more attention to. Raising children is important for both parents and for societies and communities, and we should take care of that a bit more.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. That actually covers my next question also. I was about to ask, how do you balance your personal and professional life? So I have one final question, and that's more on an informal note. What is your best memory of IIM Calcutta, and what is your biggest takeaway from this institute?
My best memory actually is of a very dear friend giving me last minute crasher on a subject which was very, very Greek to me. It seemed Greek enough when I wrote the exam, and I ended up getting a very decent grade, better than his, and he was a smart dude. And it was so sweet of him when he came up and actually celebrated with me, saying, "Hey, you got an A+ in this." I think that kind of symbolized for me the kind of relationships that we were able to make there. In spite of a very competitive setup, because there were so many bright people, everyone looking for, I think we used to call them day one jobs. I don't think we had the day zero concept back then. I don't know, by now maybe it's gone to day -1, too, but
It has.
yeah. But in spite of the competition, there was still enough camaraderie, bonding, and caring for people to look out for each other, and I really cherish that.
And what has been your biggest takeaway from this institute?
I don't know. In terms of actually the educational space, I think the fact that it's a very quant, or was very quant, worked very well for me, because I'm a very quant person. So I love math, and it comes naturally to me, and that helped me get on the roll of honor without much fuss. Great academics, great faculty, but great student group. I think we continue to be favored with that, and obviously, great student group comes first, I think. Although I know and I have met with and interacted with the faculty, and there's some very smart, well-meaning people out there. Great place also, such a lovely campus with its beautiful lakes.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. We look forward to hosting you again here at IIM Calcutta whenever you have the time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was lovely talking to you.
Same here. Thank you so much.